Yeah. You're on mute, Councillor Shaw.
I was wondering how the event went, Councillor Newton. I was back-to-back meetings and couldn't go.
It was good. It was, I got you one of their little posters. It was an explanation of their project and what they're trying to do and what they've done so far. So it was a really short presentation. So that was good. Yeah. So
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Good evening, City Manager Reimer.
How are things?
They're good. The crew that's here is ready to go.
That's true. Mr. Nola, how's the technology looking for us?
Still no Youth Councillor Nog, correct? Did she just join? All right, I will call this Tigard City Council and Local Contract Review Board meeting to order. City Recorder Krager, please call roll.
Councillor Newton.
Here.
Council President Lube.
Here.
Councillor Shaw.
Here.
Mayor Snyder.
Here.
Youth Councillor Nog.
Here.
All right, I would like everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, but on your own, please mute yourselves, and Mr. Nola, please put the flag up on the screen.
Did I miss myself for roll call or Councillor Goodhouse?
Good question. City Recorder Krager, did I step in too quickly? Or did you?
Possibly, but I was looking at you, Councillor Goodhouse, so I marked you as present.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Nola, for the flag, please. All right, thank you. Councillor staff, any non-agenda items?
Nothing from us, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll move on to proclamations and recognition. The first proclamation to proclaim May 1 through 7 as Small Business Week. Economic Development Manager Purdy, are you introducing this proclamation?
Happy to do so, Mayor Snyder. Good evening, Council. It's a pleasure to show up before you this evening. For those that are guests, I'm Lloyd Purdy. I'm the city's Economic Development Manager. Next week is National Small Business Week, and that gives us an opportunity in Tigard to recognize the more than 3,400 businesses in Tigard that employ more than 45,000 people from around the region. Additionally, it's an opportunity to recognize the business support network that we've gathered and that work with us to support business partners, micro enterprise, entrepreneurs, and small businesses that help them grow. And that's what the proclamation does. I give you an opportunity now to, I don't know how we say this, to proclaim.
Well, I'll ask for a motion from the council. Or if there's any questions, I doubt there are, but is there a motion? Council President Lube?
I move to approve proclaiming May 1st through May 7th as Small Business Week.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, City Recorder, roll call vote, please, starting with Youth Councilor Nog for an advisory vote.
Youth Councilor Nog,
Yes.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Councilor Goodhouse.
Yes.
All right, motion's adopted unanimously. Thank you, Council. Councilor Goodhouse, did you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Lloyd and the city just for the work they've done with economic development. Just looking forward to the future growth in Tigard with economic development through the triangle, through the downtown, and through our region. Just getting more businesses and bigger businesses here for Tigard residents.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 2B on the agenda, which is very exciting. We're going to award the 2022 If I Were Mayor Student Contest Prize winner. And I want to check, it looks like we've got Catherine Beckley on the line. Is that you?
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the Tigard City Council meeting. And I want to just quickly introduce how this contest works every year. The Oregon Mayors Association conducts a student contest and encourages students at 3 different levels to participate by submitting information about what they would do if they were mayor. And then each city that participates, which Tigard has always participated in the time I've been mayor and before with Mayor Cook and Mayor Dirksen before that. And this year, I am excited to announce that Catherine Beckley is our winner of our contest this year. And Mr. Nolip, would you mind putting up her work on the screen, please, so we can acknowledge it and thank her?
Thank you.
All right, so maybe I don't know if it's possible to zoom in with it that way, but maybe folks can get their microscopes out. That's okay. So Catherine, thank you very much for entering the contest this year. You by far had the best presentation and material. We do have a $50 gift card for Visa gift card that you've won as part of your participation in the Tigard part of this contest, and I want to congratulate you again. That gift card can be picked up at the utility billing desk at City Hall. It's already there and ready for you and your family to pick up. And then we have also, or I have also, made sure that your entry is entered into the state If I Were Mayor contest, which will actually be being judged tomorrow by a panel of the Oregon Mayors Association, so mayors from all over the state. So again, congratulations. Would you like to say a few things?
Sure. Thank you for awarding me this. I feel very honored to be chosen for the If I Were Mayor. And yeah, just thank you so much.
Well, thank you for entering and participating, and good luck tomorrow in the state judging. They'll be, actually, I think I would be the one that would contact you. I think they would contact me and then I would contact you. But I will wish you luck in the state contest tomorrow. So thanks for joining us. And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. How about a round of applause? All right. Have a great evening and thanks again for joining us. We're going to move on to item number 3 on the agenda, public comment. Anyone that wishes to make public comment can do so on the phone by calling in to 503-966-4101, and those with general comments should call in now to get into the queue. With that, we'll go to follow up to previous public comment. Assistant City Manager Nyland, any follow up?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. We did not receive any written comment for the April 19th council meeting, nor did we have any callers. So you know what that means. It's my fun fact. So since we are not holding a council meeting on May 3rd, I wanted to take this moment to recognize that May is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So this is observed annually to celebrate the fact that this community have contributed significantly to many facets of American culture and society. The month of May was chosen for AHNHPI Heritage Month because it commemorates the immigration of the first Japanese people to the United States, and that occurred on May 7th, 1843. May is also significant because it recognizes Golden Spike Day, May 10th, 1869, which marks the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad that was built with significant contributions from Chinese workers. I thought it was really important for us to not let this moment pass and to recognize and celebrate the many impacts this community made bettering us while acknowledging that we are still learning and listening to be champions of change and inclusion. Lastly, May is also Mental Health Awareness Month and Be Kind to Animals Month. These are great reminders to take care of yourself and to take care of others, and we should be kind to animals every month. So that's it. Thank you for your time, and I will see you in a bit for the next presentation.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Nyland. Let's see, we'll move on to written public comment. City Recorder Krager, I don't believe I saw any. Did I miss any written public comment received by noon today?
No, nothing was received by noon.
All right, Mr. Nolip, any callers in the queue? All right, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Both the Tigard City Council and Local Contract Review Board have items on the consent agenda today. Consent agenda is used for routine items, including minutes and approval of contracts or intergovernmental agreements. Information on each item is available on the city's website in the packet for this meeting. These items may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Council members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Tonight, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. One is a memorandum of understanding with the Tigard-Tualatin School District and the City of Tualatin for joint operation and use of sports and athletic fields. And then we also have for the LCRB, a pipeline renewal and replacement engineering services contract. Are there any questions or a motion there? Council President Lube, then Councilor Newton.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Newton,
Yes.
Council President Lube,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Councilor Goodhouse.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda is adopted unanimously. Thank you very much. And we will move on to a Public Safety Advisory Board quarterly update. Assistant City Manager Nyland, staff report, please. And then we've got the chair and co-chairs as well.
We do. So good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Kathy Nyland. I am the Assistant City Manager, and for this moment, I'm going to put on my hat as the team liaison for the Public Safety Advisory Board. Before we jump into it, I wanted to recognize Alexandra Richardson, who just joined the City Management Office and as our new management analyst. So from here on out, she will be serving as the liaison. So tonight, as mentioned, we're going to receive the Public Safety Advisory Board's quarterly update to council. We have Patty Lofgren and Jeff Mott, who are the chair and vice chair respectively. And I look forward to a great conversation. On that note, take it away, Patty.
All right, thank you very much, Kathy. Do we have the PowerPoint? Thank you. I'm waiting. Yes, okay. So this is our quarterly update. The last update was made in December. We tonight are going to be taking you through what we have been working on from December through March. We have been asked to highlight several accomplishments that have taken place. So we'll go over exactly what items we've discussed in the last 3 months, but then we will take you through the 3 items that we have highlighted as particular accomplishments we'd like to elaborate on. And then I believe there's 10 minutes for questions or any kind of discussion that you would like to have with us after we're done. How about the next slide? So I became chair in March, and I'm a community representative. My name is Patty Lofgren, and I've lived in Tigard for just about 30 years now. And Jeff, are you there?
I'm here. Hey everyone, Jeff Mott, also a community representative. I've lived in Tigard for coming up on 9 years.
And so tonight, the 3 months that we're going to be evaluating and sharing are the complaints and discipline with respect to the police department in the city of Tigard. I think you are all aware of the mission statement, but I'll just review it briefly. To improve the lived experience of all people in Tigard so that everyone enjoys the same safety and privilege through a comprehensive review of the practices and procedures in the city police department, municipal court, and social justice initiatives. And I do have to say that being on this board has been one of the most rewarding experiences I can recall. This has just genuinely been an amazing experience, and I've appreciated so much our opportunities to have input. The next slide.
So these first couple slides, we're going to just go over very quickly the units we covered, and we'll have more discussion around a few of the recommendations that came through and passed. So in December, we all had the opportunity to do laser shot training at the department. So we had a debrief on that and how things went, what we thought, what we learned. Also in December, we talked through the professional standards sergeant position. We had an approved recommendation from that we'll get into more in a bit. And January, continued discussion on professional standards sergeant, went through complaints and discipline overview, use of force, and collective bargaining. Packed a lot in a short amount of time.
And then in February, we continued our conversation about the professional standards sergeant. We began our conversation about the Ombudsman Recommendation. We got a very lovely update on the Tigard School Resource Officers. And then in March, we were able to talk about the mental health response team and how that has changed in the last year or so. And we continued our discussion about school resource officers. We evaluated the traffic stop policy process, police process in the city of Tigard. And then we began to talk about the judicial process, which has continued into the month of April. I think we're ready for the next slide. So these are the first 3 are the 3 that we wanted to focus on. We were invited to focus on tonight. And so I will start by talking about the laser shot training, which I think all of the PSAB members had an opportunity to participate in. I had no idea what I was signing up for when I signed up for it. It took over an hour at the police department. And so we arrived individually, one at a time, for an hour and about a 90-minute training. And when we arrived, Sergeant Prater did an excellent overview of what we would be doing. He then took us and fully outfitted us in all of the gear that police officers wear, the protective gear. We received a belt with a taser and a belt with a gun. And then he showed us how to hold a gun, how to shoot a gun, took us through some basic safety considerations. And then we were given, I believe, 6 scenarios. So we're in a room with a huge video screen, the size of a wall in your house. And on that video screen, we were given a scenario that an emergency phone call to the police would bring them on to this situation. And then we had to decide how to handle the situation. And so the situations were things like someone has a gun in your house, or someone is drunk in a tree on someone's property and they can't get down, or someone's sitting outside of a restaurant with a gun, and how do you diminish that situation? And so the actual scenarios probably lasted a minute to 90 seconds, and you had to react on the spot. But what happened at the end of each one of those scenarios is Sergeant Prater then told you exactly what the scenario was about, exactly what you did wrong, exactly what you did right. And it was just extremely informative. I don't think any of us were prepared for the activity level that we'd be experiencing in that, or what incredible insights we got into what officers experience on a daily basis, or maybe not on a daily basis, but in their positions. And also it gave us insights into the training. This is not training for the PSIB, this is training for the police officers. And the fact that it gives them opportunities in these scenarios to practice and prepare for the kinds of things they might encounter in their position. So I thought that was an extraordinarily informative, much more so than someone telling us about it. To actually experience it live was just an incredible experience. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, you explained it super well, and I have to say that it's very different than what I'm used to in my day-to-day life. Like in my career, in my life, I have time to sit back and think before I have to respond to most situations, and so it was very alien compared to what I'm used to. Cool.
All right.
So I
you,
can.
Jeff.
Cool, thanks. I'll talk about the Professional Standard Sergeant Recommendation. This was back in December when we started, and basically over the past year at the time, the department had been piloting a Professional Standard Sergeant, and it kind of breaks down into 4 focuses. One is creating a centralized hub for internal investigations and like use of force response or complaints, coordinating training, working with department heads to schedule and budget, being an SRO liaison to the school districts, and eventually we'll also start doing some stop data analysis and analysis to look at trends. So the way the chief kind of outlined it, and I think we agreed in PSAB for the most part, was this position does create transparency, at least internally, especially with internal investigations. There's one person doing all of it instead of potentially someone's direct supervisor, which also creates accountability for the department. And when we went to vote, it passed, and that's the basics of it. So yeah, Patty.
Thank you. So the Ombudsman recommendation was quite an interesting conversation. It generated a lot of research. What is an ombudsman? What does it mean? How do you pronounce it? It created quite a few challenges, and we had quite lengthy discussions. And we did learn that ombudsman comes from the Swedish, which means representative. And the purpose of that suggestion was to create a position in the city of Tigard that was someone who community members could reach out to help them navigate the government systems, the police systems, that would foster a trusting and meaningful relationship so that people felt like they could reach out to this. And we ended up changing the title from ombudsperson to community navigator. That person would be someone who could, someone just didn't know who to call, they could start with the community navigator and say, hi, here's my issue, here's my concern, can you help me figure out how to deal with this in the city of Tigard or with the police department? And this ended up being something that we felt strongly was quite a positive addition. And this person would actually interact with the professional standards sergeant so that they would have some kind of positive interaction, and it would give people, meet people where they were and give them voice. And this very much coordinates with our goal of having equity and making Tigard welcoming and with transparency and accountability in the city. So that was also something that we voted to encourage. And
Can
yes.
you comment on whether, is that a position that's envisioned to be in the police department, or is it a position, or is it a role of someone that already is in a staff position? Like, can you speak a little more about that and whether they would get involved in navigating other issues that are not necessarily law enforcement related? I think all those things would be helpful for the public.
Okay, so the original document, and I have it in front of me, read, creation of a position within the city of Tigard's organizational structure that focuses its responsibilities utilizing a community-centered lens on police management, operations, and support services that impact the community at large, while ensuring that communities of color are afforded equity, justice, transparency. This position would be responsible for reviewing city department practices, identifying and eliminating institutional racism to ensure equity within all city operations and structures. And we do not know where it went after our recommendation, but it stated in this document to request funding of the position through city general fund dollars in fiscal year at a 21-22 at a rate to be determined, inclusive of salary, benefits, related materials, and resources. Does that answer your question, Mayor Snyder?
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Newton, it looks like you want to add some color.
Yeah, you might remember in our budget that there was a section that talked about evaluating a community navigator position. And as we went through the discussions, the chief brought up a good point in terms of a full-time position in the police department. There probably wouldn't be enough work. And so as we talked it through, it became a position that somebody could reach out to, as Ms. Lofgren said, on any kind of an issue. And one of the key things we talked about, what we're thinking about city management, was this person could then go over to a team member and say, this is an issue that's come up. So working with an appropriate team member to try to navigate how to respond to that. So it's really sort of a liaison to the community and also to the team members to say, geez, I don't know that you realize how this is being perceived, but we've got some concerns here. So it morphed into the recommendation to evaluating such a position, and it's going to be up to the organization, obviously, but probably in the city manager's office or a more general department and not necessarily the police department. And Jeff and Patty may have further comments.
Jeff, it looks like your hand is up.
Yeah, I think part of the onus of this position is to minimize the barriers for someone to call to figure out what's going on in their life that's not, not good, whether it's with the police or with the city or parks or wherever. So this is supposed to be more of a, a regular person that you can talk to versus having to call the police chief or the mayor or somebody in a high position like that.
And a lovely example of this just happened at our meeting, not this week, but last 3 weeks ago. There was someone in the city of Tigard who had issues with their neighbor that felt threatening, but it didn't quite qualify as something that where the police would respond. But if there was an ombudsman person or a community navigator, that particular person, so they wrote a lengthy response to the PSAB. Their community members are allowed to make either written comments or attend our meetings and make public comments and bring up issues. And this particular person wrote a 2-page community response about why isn't this something that the police could handle, and this particular position I think would have met that person's needs very directly.
Councillor Shaw.
Great, thank you so much. And this is a very informative presentation. If I'm not mistaken, that case was also brought forth, or individuals testified in public hearing before our council meeting. And I believe we have the ability, and they have the ability, to have an arbitrator or somebody who could negotiate a conclusion between the two sides. So I'm not sure we necessarily would need to have an additional ombudsman, or as we would call it, a community navigator, but appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, I think Councillor Shaw, I think it's a great point, and I think community mediation, or the Mediation Dispute Resolution Center, is kind of where we've directed that group to try to, if they need a neutral party, to resolve it. And I would think that the community navigator might refer people or people with conflicts to that dispute resolution process with some regularity, just given some of the situations are brought to my attention. That one's been very public, but there are lots that are similar but don't get testified about at council meetings by 20 people. So that one's gotten a little more energy, but all right, Patty, sorry we're derailing your and Jeff's presentation.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So I think that we're down to time for questions, but I do want to say that I appreciate the diverse perspectives that the members on this PSAB bring. We have mental health professionals, we have lawyers, we have community members representing different, races and equities and so forth. And I am always astonished during our meetings at our ability to chew on things deeply and come to consensus. It's been just a very rich and rewarding experience. And we have met more than 30 times. And I think we all really value the experience. Anything you want to add, Jeff?
Yeah, I just echo those sentiments. And I also would add that I'm thankful, and I think the other community representatives are thankful for the openness of the chief and the department and the city to do something like this. The navigator discussion was probably the richest, I think, that we've had, and people started with their minds in one place, and after our discussions and some passionate calls from some of the representatives, some minds were changed, and just a big thanks to those people that went along with it and decided to vote for it.
So, Jeff, what I hear you saying there is getting to consensus on that one was challenging?
It was. And I think, I don't know, I think the department does a good job for the city already. And so when there is a new service that needs to be offered, or a new position, they feel like they can do the job because that's what they feel. And so I think that was the mindset at the beginning. Like, the police department is here. We have a process for complaints, for all these sorts of things. But from the discussion from some representatives, it was clear that there should be an additional person that's not directly connected to the department that can be this liaison or be this navigator.
Well, thanks for sharing that perspective. Council members, any questions or comments on the presentation? Councilor Newton?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff and Patty, for that great presentation. I just want to echo that along what Patty said, this has been an incredible experience. And one of the things that I'm so impressed with is the participants give 110% every meeting. There's a lot of information that they're digesting. The questions are thoughtful. There's not a hesitation to offer an alternative viewpoint or express something that people feel deeply about. So it's really been an incredible experience. And I think it's a good model for us to think about using in other issues where we might need a task force, because the idea of building consensus and the police department has been incredible in terms of their willingness to share information. Their presentations have been phenomenal. So it's really been a great experience. And I'm going to be sad when it's over in June, but we also are advocating for having at least one in-person meeting. So we hope we can do that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, it's been an incredible experience. And I want to thank my colleagues on the council for letting me participate.
Well, Councilor Newton, thanks for putting all the dedicated time in too. That was a huge commitment. I know we talked about it early on, and I think we all recognized it was going to be significant, and there were certain folks that both had the time and interest, and you were, I think, clearly the best choice, and we appreciate that. Council President Loop?
Yeah, I first want to thank you for your service on the board, because I think it's such an incredible board that we've had, and you know, speaking to all of the things you're discussing. And I was wondering at a personal level, with this section that you've gone through, is there anything that, and you talked about the incredible experience of the laser shot, but is there anything else that surprised you or you changed your mind on when, you know, the discussion was had or the topic was brought up?
I don't know if it's my mind was changed, but I was really happy with the presentations around school resource officers. It's clear, you know, Officer Nunn and the broader team, along with the school districts, have already done a ton of work over the last year or so and have already put in new processes and responsibilities for SROs with a set cadence of when they'll relook at contracts and relook at processes and check in to make sure everything is going well. So that was one example where it was just super dialed when we started talking about it.
Yeah, I have to jump in, and I have to also share what Councilor Newton said in terms of when the police, they have been presenting lengthy presentations at our meetings, letting us know about the school resource officers. And I just, knowing that throughout the state, so many schools are getting rid of their school resource officers, and that we are embracing ours and welcoming ours, it really says something about our police department and the work that they're doing to create a very safe and welcoming police department. The other thing that I was astonished to learn, and I didn't change my mind about it, but I was astonished to learn about the mental health professionals, both in Washington County and now in the city of Tigard, that have been added to the force. And I mean, I heard a statistic this morning that was shocking to me, that in Poland, they treat drug addiction as a mental health problem that requires mental health service as though you're sick. And we have 50 times as many people die from drug addiction in this country as in Poland. So 6 of them versus 300 of us. And to me, having that mental health professional on the city of Tigard's Police Department is saving lives. And I can't say enough about what a rewarding presentation that was.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's almost 20% of Tigard's interactions with the public involve someone with like a behavioral health incident or transient incident. And so it's definitely a big part of what the police have to deal with. And the mental health response team for South Cities and, for broader Washington County, they have a lot of on their shoulders with the amount of interactions that are required.
Right.
Thank you both for your thoughtful response. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Councilor Goodhouse.
Yes, thank you both for all the work and time, and 30 meetings is a lot. One big thing is always what's great is all the everything you've learned and all the valuable tools and everything you've learned through the process is great to get out to as many people as possible throughout the Tigard and throughout the area. I know Councilor Shaw and I are both doing the Tigard Police Academy is back, where the Citizens Academies come back, where citizens can go through that. And it's I think it's a 6-week course that we can walk through and figure out what different parts that all the inner workings of the police department. What I'd love to see for a recommendation and see to kind of pass along is what parts you really found valuable, what others may really want to know or need to know, and see if that part is part of the Citizen Academy process. And if anything is missing, please let the police department or the chief know which areas should be added in there. Now that you've gone through a lot more thorough process, what should be there, what should be included, what people should know. And it would probably be great too if each person kind of did some kind of little brief description, put it out to the paper or put it out to the, I'm sure through the city we'll have that, but just more of a little highlight and bullet points of what everyone learned, what people should know. And what you found available, what could be changed, and where resources and what way people could really feel comfortable interacting with the city and giving comments too as well. But that's the biggest thing I think would be just be huge to get that over to the Citizen Academy. So if the future, every time they have those ones, all those other aspects are also in that as well.
We actually were told that the Citizens Academy, they weren't going to let us in because we had already virtually received all the training that they were going to be doing. So even though some of our members said, oh, please let us in, Chief McAlpine said, you're on the waiting list, but you've already had it all. So it sounds like it's covering a lot of the same things that we've covered. Yeah, I kind of wanted to do it too, because I'm just really enjoying digging into the city of Tigard, but they wouldn't let us in.
But thank you
yeah,
for all.
we will see if we can put together some kind of summary of the topics and potentially. Now all of the our meetings have been taped and are on the Tigard website, so people can watch those and learn in the same ways that we've learned, and watch our conversations and our debates and our decisions, and that's all there for the city.
I think that's a really important part of the process, because if people have, difficulty understanding why a particular decision was made or recommendation was made, they can go watch the whole discussion and the deliberation and the why. And I think, there are some people who really need that to be able to understand the why. Councilor Goodhouse, did you have anything further?
No, besides thanking them for their time and all their work on this and all this great feedback.
And Patty, if you're needing more activities to do and you've got time on your hands for the city, you just let us know. We'll put you to work.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. I appreciate that.
All right. Jeff or Patty or Assistant City Manager Nyland, is there anything further on this report out?
No, thank you, Patty and Jeff, for going over a lot that occurred over the last 3 or 4 months. And we'll have a next report out in late June, July, kind of recapping the whole process of the Public Safety Advisory Board. So thank you, everyone, for your time and attention.
That'd be great. And Kathy, if that report out could sort of incorporate some of the summary information that Councilor Goodhouse is asking for, I think that would be helpful. I do think, the community deserves some sort of a summary of what was discussed, learned, what the outcomes are, what they can participate in, or why things are the way they are, and maybe even an index to where they can go, watch, like go to meeting 3. If you want to see the debate about body cams, go to meeting 3, the first hour or whatever, that kind of an index, I think, could help in the future too, while it's fresh in everybody's minds, because this work is, I'm not sure concluding is the right word from my perspective. We're concluding this part of the work. But I have no doubt that in the long run, there's going to be additional work that needs to be done and people may need to reference. Councillor Goodhouse?
And Mayor, you made a good point too, that if the city is going to kind of catalog that and make it into an option where that's online and we can look at it. If we've learned anything about human nature doesn't, if the PSAB meeting is 3.5 hours long, they're not going to want to watch a 3.5 hour long. But if there's a way for we cataloging that and putting it online, if we can break that down to snippets where maybe there's a half-hour section, or maybe we can take in, might take a little extra time, but edit that into sections. So if you say you want to watch body cameras, here's a 30-minute window where we can watch this segment and kind of break into chunks, so we can kind of edit it, maybe break it down into those sections so people can look at those, maybe get some kind of little, like chapters and catalog and little book tabs as far as what each section's about, rather than if we just post the meeting there and say that, unless we maybe also break it down and say we'll watch from this point to this point, but sometimes those little snippets might be even better. And it might be just something in the future too we can use where, did you know moment, where we can throw those out and say, hey, here's a 10-minute video on did you know, and just use what we've already done and throwing that out there.
Great. These are both great suggestions, and we'll make sure we do all of that for the executive summary, as well as directing people where to go and learn more.
The only thing I would sort of caution or suggest is that we not, the dialogue and discussion deliberation is important, and I would not want us to be in the business of editing what's in or not in that part of the discussion. So I think we need to, I understand the point that Councillor Goodhouse is making, but I think we need to be cautious about not even unintentionally removing content because it's just easier or shorter or whatever, because the whole process is important. All right, I'm going to move us on to item number 6 on the agenda, American Rescue Plan Act Resolution. Senior Management Analyst Hendricks.
Hello,
Nicole,
sorry, I think my internet just went out on me.
We were not hearing you. There you go.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm going to turn off my camera just to make sure my internet hangs in there. Hopefully y'all can still hear me. So good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to see you. Sorry you can't see me. My name is Nicole Hendricks. I'm the Senior Management Analyst in the City Manager's Office here at Tigard. I'm here tonight to bring forward a resolution for your consideration that would approve the team to report our American Rescue Plan Act funds as revenue replacement to the Treasury. So when the American Rescue Plan Act was first established, the Treasury provided an interim final rule that gave us guidance on allowable uses of our ARPA funds. And then in January of this year, the Treasury released an updated final rule that included feedback from cities on the interim rule and included more flexibility with how to invest these funds. So one of the ways the funds became a little bit more flexible is this option to report funds in this revenue replacement category, which would allow each agency to stipulate up to 10 million in revenue loss. From a budget standpoint, if this resolution is approved, this would mean that Tigard's allocation, which is 7.4 million, will be recognized in the general fund as funds are received. As you know, our first half of funds were received last June, and we're expecting the second half to arrive this June. So reporting this way will reduce the level of detailed tracking and project requirements. I outlined that in a little bit more detail in your agenda item summary, as well as simplify any single audit requirements, which would reduce the impact on our finance team and our project managers. And this way of reporting would also give flexibility on just how we invest our funds. So any past ARPA investment decisions that have been made by you to fund projects like RAFT or CARES or revolving loans and others are unaffected by this resolution and will continue to be implemented. And similarly, we're going to continue to gather input from community on how they would like to see the funds invested. So our recommendation is for you to consider approving the resolution for ARPA funds to be reported in the revenue replacement category. And if you'd like to defer any action until you determine how to use and report on these funds received, please feel free, and determine the costs associated with this administration and financial reporting of those funds. So with that, I will open it up for any comments or questions. And also our finance director, Cindy Trimp, is also available to answer any specific budget or financial questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And I guess I just want to make sure that, you know, we're the intent here is very clearly to not necessarily, well, we still need to be very clear with our community about what we're doing with the funds that we received.
Yes.
And this, you know, one of our frustrations, and I would say local government in general has frustrations over, and I've even spoken to, you know, federal administrative leaders about the fact that almost every federal program is so administratively burdensome that it takes way more time to administer, for example, the rental assistance benefits than it should. And so part of why things don't, you know, get distributed or get managed the way they need to is because of that heavy administrative burden. And I just want to make a distinction between that, which is what I view as happening here, is we're basically, you know, the federal government has heard local government and said, okay, we hear you. We're going to make some adjustments to make this less administratively burdensome. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to be transparent with our community about how and where we're investing and spending the money. So I just want to make that distinction. Sorry to belabor that, but I think it's important. Councillor Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm looking at the resolution, and excuse me if I shouldn't be confused, but I am. On this third section, I understand what you were saying, Mr. Mayor, and I agree. Being clear with our community is important, but I think the intent of the resolution would save us some burdensome account.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, but on the third, whereas it talks about for each government to meet local needs in 4 areas, and it lists the areas. So I'm assuming as we're reporting out to our community, we would be tying the investments that we make to those 4 areas. Am I correct, Nicole? Is that correct? Even though we're reporting it as lost revenue, we still need to tie it to one of those 4 areas?
Yeah, when we report out, like on the website, like we have been doing, we keep them in these kind of categories so that people can see how it relates back to the intent of the funds. So yes.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions, comments, or a motion? Councillor Shaw? You are still muted. Oh, off and on.
Having some tech issues. It goes on and off. I'm happy to make a motion unless there's further discussion. If not, I move to approve resolution number 22-09.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number, excuse me, 22-09, a resolution of the City of Tigard approving the use of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, funds for fiscal year 2022.
And a roll call vote, starting with Youth Councillor Nog for an advisory vote.
Youth Councillor Nog.
Yes.
Councillor Newton.
Yes.
Council President Lube.
Yes.
Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Councillor Goodhouse.
Yes.
All right, resolution 22-09 is passed unanimously. Thank you. And Nicole, thank you for the presentation and the excellent work.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll move on to item number 7, which is an update on Tigard City Council goals. City Manager Reimer, and you've got a whole, looks like a whole leadership team here ready to go.
Well, good evening again, Mayor and councilors, members of the community, and my teammates. You are correct. We have a number of teammates are involved in carrying forward your goals that you adopted. It was just over a year ago in April of 2021 when you actually adopted these goals. So I think we just step back for a second and think where we're at in April of 2022 through the council's leadership and your guidance and our teammates' hard efforts. We've made significant progress. And so today is our progress report number 3. And we'll walk through each of them. We know that you've had some additional conversations about 2 of your goals, goal 3, which is the community resiliency plan, and goal 4, which is the park and recreation system plan. So we'll start by, I'll hand it off to Assistant City Manager Kathy Nyland, who is the sponsor of our first 2 goals, which is our response to homelessness and our COVID-19 response. So Kathy.
Me again. As Steve just mentioned, we will start off with goal 1, the response to homelessness. And I'd like to introduce Halstead Bernard and Chief McAlpine, who have been fantastic project leads on this, and I'm available to assist and support the team. So take it away, Halstead.
Thank you, Kathy. And good evening, Mayor Snyder and City Council, members of the Tigard community and city teammates. My name is Halstead Bernard. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the director of the Tigard Public Library. I'm here with Chief Kathy McAlpine. We are the co-leads for Council Goal 1, which is to develop an actionable, person-centric regional response to homelessness. So tonight, the Chief and I are here with our quarterly update on Goal 1. First on this slide, you can see our 3 strategies. So our first strategy, reigniting efforts, focused on homelessness and identifying best practices. We created an internal project team, which meets every 2 weeks. We continue to work on our gap analysis of services in our community, what is offered and what is not yet offered. And we're working on a strategic communications plan that leads with compassion and centers those in need. Our next strategy, facilitating citywide conversations to learn more about concerns and resources to serve those in need. We're working to establish the Community Homelessness Assessment and Response Team, also known as CHART, comprised of service providers, local community groups like the Chamber of Commerce and the Tigard Downtown Alliance, and soon both housed and unhoused individual community members. And CHART will be integral to this, to these citywide conversations, including a diversity of perspectives and backgrounds, and gathering regularly to talk about how we serve those in need in Tigard. And the last strategy is about developing and implementing a housing insecurity and prevention plan, which we continue to work on by evaluating and providing recommendations on services like safe lots, tiny villages, and other wraparound services, while learning more about the work that our service providers are already doing in the Tigard community, as well as the capacity that is currently being built at the county level. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our key accomplishments this quarter have been thanks to Council's approval of ARPA funds. We're building capacity for this important work. And just as a reminder, we identified 2 positions to add capacity to Team Tigard. The first position is a Houseless Services Policy Manager at 0.5 FTE, which is a high-level strategy position. And the second position is a Houselessness Program Coordinator at 1.0 FTE, which will be focused on daily outreach and engagement around houselessness in our community. This program coordinator opportunity was just posted on the city's website, and the application period closes in 2 weeks. Both positions will help us understand and connect with the existing regional response, and they'll help us think strategically about how to best use our limited resources to support that regional response. The next point here, we applied for a federal earmark to fund an additional community service officer to focus on encampments by visiting them, connecting residents living in them with resources, and helping to post and clean them up when needed. On the next point, I'm very excited to talk about this. Last Wednesday, we held the first ever ID workshop at the Tigard Public Library. This was in collaboration with Leadership Tigard, the Tigard Police Department, and Just Compassion. This is an opportunity for people to get assistance with understanding the DMV process, so determining which documents are required, vital documents, and help request the replacement of these vital records, sign up for Just Compassion's mail drop program, and obtain a fee waiver for a no-cost Oregon identification card, and make an appointment to visit the DMV to get that card. As you may assume or know, so much hinges on having one of these state-issued IDs, access to services, leases, anything you can think of. We have to prove our identity. So these cards are very essential. And the fact that we were able to provide these, we actually were able to help 19 people through this drive, which was on last Wednesday, just a few hours in the library. Such a powerful impact to the community. TriMet and Leadership Tigard also provided resource bags and clothes to the people who showed up. And 9 people that day showed up, signed up for a shuttle bus to take them to the Sherwood DMV last Friday. It was a huge success, and we have high hopes to replicate it as a library program in the future. And we would like to thank Council President Lube, who volunteered for the entire event, and also to Councilor Shaw and Councilor Goodhouse for stopping by to offer your support. Thank you so much. Moving on, as of last month, Community Service Officer Peterson is now providing houselessness outreach in Tigard full-time. He regularly visits encampments, partners with Just Compassion and other service providers. He responds to resident feedback, and he educates community members about houselessness. And also this quarter, we cleaned up several 1 to 2 person encampments and connected those residents with services. So moving on to opportunities. We will be working with CHART to identify opportunities to assist unhoused residents when their encampments have been posted for cleanup, and we will review current camping and parking ordinances related to motorhomes in residential areas. Now, I wanted to take a moment to mention 2 things that couldn't fit on the slides. First, some specifics on our communication and engagement efforts. We've provided local nonprofits with resource cards in English and Spanish that they can give to the houseless. We've spotlighted the city's work with Just Compassion by interviewing Vernon Baker for the State of the City, and thank you, Mayor Snyder. We supported the work of Family Promise by spotlighting their work on the Talking Tigard podcast, and we discussed the city's strategy to address houselessness with the Committee for Community Engagement. We continue to provide regular updates on our engagement with the community to our houselessness page on our website. And in January, you had requested an update on the efforts from Washington County. On April 19th, Washington County came to Tigard to reassess the field's natural area encampment based on their newly revised criteria. The Encampment Management Program risk assessment evaluates needs for sanitation, waste management, personal property management, and encampment cleanup. And the county recently sent over a draft MOU to work with us to provide assistance for those needs. Our team has reviewed the MOU and sent it back, and we hope to move forward with this very soon. And unless Chief McAlpine has anything else to add, I will just say that we'll wrap this up for now. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and I'll turn this back over to Assistant City Manager Kathy Nyland. Thank you.
Thank you, Halstead. So now on to goal 2 about COVID. Looking back, we've been in this state of a pandemic for over 2 years now. Initially, we thought it would only last about 2 weeks, and we've fully embraced this is just a way of life. So on that note, I would like to introduce Nicole Hendricks and Dana Bennett to provide an update of where we are with this council goal.
Thanks, Kathy, and good evening again, Mayor and Council. Good to see you. So I'm joined tonight by Dana Bennett, who's our HR director, and we're co-leads for Council Goal 2, which is to support the Tigard community through a coordinated COVID-19 response. This goal encompasses various efforts to support our community members in different ways through the pandemic, both in response and recovery. And the first is to allocate and communicate how American Rescue Plan funds are assisting with recovery efforts. The second is to address the barriers that exist within the digital divide. And the third is to reimagine and embrace forward-thinking approaches for the delivery of city services post-pandemic. So the team continues to implement programs with the American Rescue Plan Act Fund, also referred to as ARPA. And to date, Tigard has allocated 5.4 million of our 7.4 million ARPA funds to 12 different programs and projects, which includes community and nonprofit support, like our RAFT grant opportunity. It's been supporting different council goals like houselessness and loan programs for housing and businesses. And since our last update, our economic development team launched its 6th round of our commercial assistance and relief for economic stability, or our CARES grant program with ARPA funds. And actually 27 grant awards were made in this most recent round, and they ranged from anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. And now the team is starting to work on the revolving loan fund that will be managed by a community development financial institution, and that will support Tigard businesses far into the future. So we're really excited about that. Other relief efforts to date just can be found on the right of this slide, and it includes the federal relief funds we got through the CARES money, the federal CARES money. And so with that, we did our Tigard Aid program that helped people pay their utility bills. We did a community mural activity. We delayed rate increases. We did a lot of different things. And so that's just kind of aside from the ARPA funds. But I'm also excited to share on kind of the digital side that our library laptop router and checkout program and technology classes have been helping our community access services. So anyone with a library card can check out one or both of those items for a 2-week period. And we began checking out hotspots in Wi-Fi hotspots actually back in 2018. And then this January, we added 11 Chromebooks with hotspots, their little kits that can be checked out. And we currently have about 17 in circulation. And in March, we added 9 more that can be checked out for people to use inside the library. So, and there is a wait list for those. So it's cool to see that people want to use them. And then another program I just want to highlight really quick to help address the digital divide is our one-on-one technology classes that are also at the library. Every Wednesday morning from 10 to noon, there are 4 30-minute appointments available. And it's rare for any of these appointments to go unfilled. So starting in June, we will add an additional 4 appointments that people can make on Saturdays, I think. And I hear that the majority of the tech classes are helping our seniors learn how to navigate their smartphones. And I'm excited that we're able to help them. So I think with that, I'll hand it over to Dana to talk a little bit more specifically about our approach to responding to COVID.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, again, Dana Bennett, the Human Resources Director, co-lead with Nicole on this goal. Just in terms of accomplishments, city buildings are all open. We're all super excited about that. All of our services are being offered in person. And of course, we've continued to offer virtual opportunities as well, so people have options. As we have opened those doors and a mask mandate has been removed, we have also continued to ask for social distancing. So while we're recommending it for our community, we are still requiring it for our employees. We're trying to make sure that we don't end up with a cascade transmitted COVID situation at work. So really trying to still kind of keep people safe as we watch and wait to see how this current mask removal will do with the rates of transmission. Our goal is to keep our community and our staff as safe as we can reasonably. So Tigard's taking a cautious approach, and we're going to continue to let data and science lead our decision making. We're going to wait for a few more weeks as we watch this mask removal time and kind of see what happens with the virus before we make our next decisions. So in terms of opportunities, communication around COVID. Oregon has dropped its mask mandate, and we've dropped ours as well. Decision making around safety for decisions around safety have been moved to agencies and business levels, so they're no longer state mandated, and so Tigard is making its own decisions as we move forward, trying to react to actual events. So one of the things we've adopted is the high, medium, and low transmission standards that Washington County Public Health and OHA are using. What that measures is the number of hospital beds being used, new hospital admissions, and the total number of COVID cases in determining the risk factor for our community. So at present, Washington County and the state of Oregon are at a low transmission rate. That's a great place to be. Tigard has adopted a safety policy that allows us to move as that transmission rate adjusts. So right now, in a low transmission rate, we're recommending masks, but not requiring them. And again, for our staff, at least at the moment, we're continuing the social distancing. If we move into a medium category of transmission, then we're going to be in a strongly recommending masks, but we won't actually require face coverings again unless we move into a high rate of transmission or if we have a unique uptick in case transmissions for on-site staff. So those would be the areas that would trigger a change in our policy. So we've attempted to draft a policy that will not have to be redrafted every 2 weeks. We're looking forward to seeing a policy that can live and breathe as COVID changes occur. So, sorry, got to scroll my screen real quick. All right, so navigating hybrid meetings. So council has been one of our test cases. You've all experienced what it's like to try and do a hybrid council meeting with some council virtual and some on site. We've discovered that there's a mixed result there with some facilitation and flow issues. City Manager Reimer came to council and talked with council about how we want to move forward. Council has provided some advice, and City Manager Reimer and others are working behind the scenes to come up with some recommendations for council. And they'll be coming back to council on the 17th of May to discuss those. For our boards, commissions, and committees at the city, they'll all be contacted to determine how they want to meet. Some may elect to continue to meet virtually for a while, and like the rest of the city, sort of see what's going to happen with transmission rates. We're all hopeful that the trend for improvement will continue, but we are still in a pandemic. So as a reminder, just to our community, public meetings now, due to a state law change, if we have public meetings, they do have to offer a virtual opportunity as well. That is partly just to help increase accessibility for our community, which is one of the things Tigard's really been spending a lot of time thinking about and trying to help improve on. So work continues in that area. We hope that we seek a balance between our in-person opportunities and virtual opportunities, and continue to provide opportunities for those who can't come into City Hall to be able to actively participate in city council meetings and other kinds of meetings. So again, at present, Washington County continues to be in a low transmission period. We hope to see that continue and create more opportunities for our team and our community to come together. But we're in a wait and see mode. You all might recall that last July, we also had a mask removal, and that ended in a mask return. So we're hopeful that won't be the case this time, but we're prepared, and we're creating policies that can adjust as transmission rates adjust in our area. So with that, that is the closure of where we're at present on Council Goal 2. We'll move to Council Goal 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole and Dana. Nice job. Council Goal 3 is a community resiliency plan. This is led by Assistant City Manager Emily Tritch and our Community Development Director, Kenny Asher. And I'm going to turn it over to Emily at this point.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. As Steve said, I'm joined by our co-lead, Kenny Asher. My name is Emily Tritch. I'm the Assistant City Manager of Investment and Infrastructure. This goal area is sponsored by Steve Reimer, and as I say, is co-led with Kenny and myself. And we're excited to share several updates with you today. So the strategies related to the Community Resiliency Plan are to develop and implement a community resiliency plan specific to the needs of Tigard community and organization, to implement resiliency practices helping us to achieve carbon neutrality by the year 2035, possibly among the most aggressive, which is great. The next strategy is about communicating our resiliency efforts to the community to encourage individuals and businesses to adopt new practices supporting our climate goals. And finally, develop regional partnerships to help reduce carbon throughout the Portland metro. So next slide, please. I'll talk through some of the accomplishments. I'll share that our consultant team has completed the climate modeling, taking data from several of our regional partners, utilities, and stakeholders impacting Tigard, and have developed an initial set of low carbon recommendations that we're working through with our Community Advisory Committee and our Technical Advisory Committee. Related to our fourth strategy on the previous slide about building partnerships, we're doing it in several ways, both in terms of the data collection and reporting and as part of our Technical Advisory Committee work. Thanks to your guidance at Council 2 weeks ago, we've confirmed our scope and are making some good progress on both the low carbon and the natural hazard mitigation, disaster preparedness sides of Goal 3. And we'll have much more to share with you in the coming weeks and months. I mentioned a moment ago that our advisory committees were formed. We've met with both our community and technical advisors 2 times now. Our BIPOC task force will be assembling here soon, and they have a couple of meetings responding to the equity, vulnerable community, and frontline community side of this goal, which is to center those interests and to ensure that the benefits of these investments consider those groups at the heart of it. Finally, we have many engagement artifacts available, including the Engage page, which has been updated online, as well as updates to our external-facing website on the City of Tigard webpage. There's a few opportunities for members of the community to weigh in on how we do our work, low carbon action, climate action, and in disaster preparedness and response. We're also looking at other opportunities to engage in person as we have additional events in the public, including at the farmers market and other opportunities. So that leads us right into this opportunities section, which is, as I mentioned, that we're identifying and prioritizing the bold actions. We have almost 30 individual recommendations from our consultant team identified to date. They are underscore bold. And so we're working to identify how we might prioritize those and present them to you all in council so that you can make informed recommendations or decisions about how we want to proceed. I mentioned that the natural hazard mitigation planning work is in process now. This is a regional effort as jurisdictions across the state and utilities and others are planning their updated hazard mitigation planning for the state and for FEMA. So that work continues and is another avenue for partnership. And then finally, we have several community events. We want to continue to socialize our carbon reduction goals and priorities and continue to get feedback from the community. As I mentioned a couple of council sessions ago, we've heard a lot of diverse and varied interests, everything from recycling to trees to food access and so on. So it's great to continue to get that feedback from the public. If anyone's tuning in this evening, I hope you will continue to do so, and we'll be sure to package that up for council soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate that. And our final goal, or goal 4, is the adoption and implementation of our Parks and Recreation System Plan. And with us is our Public Works Director, Brian Reger. I believe you're here, Brian. There you are. Brian will walk through this, and then after that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have or comments about what we are doing with each of the goals. Brian?
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Brian Reger, Public Works Director. And tonight I'm here to present on Council Goal 4, which is related to Parks and Recreation. And it says, adopt and implement the Parks and Recreation System Plan by developing a realistic funding plan and cost-effective service delivery model. The 3 strategies related to this goal focus on evaluating service delivery models for the future of the programs and looking at funding strategy and improving equity and safety around our parks and trails system. Next slide, please. As you know, a huge part of this goal was accomplished when the council adopted the Parks and Recreation System Plan update back in January. And while the system plan was a major accomplishment, we did explain at that time that there was more work to do, specifically the development of an implementation plan, which would focus on how we will accomplish the work in the system plan, and as well as fulfill the balance of Council Goal 4. Our team approached the council after we had developed a roadmap, what we refer to as a roadmap for the implementation plan, and we presented that to you on March 15th. And we received very good feedback from you. It was real helpful for us to hear from you and direction as to how we would continue that work. The roadmap showed how we propose to break the work up into 3 main buckets. The first one is project prioritization, where we will be developing specific cost estimates for projects, developing some project prioritization criteria, and applying that criteria to the project list to sort them. The second bucket is developing a funding plan that addresses how ongoing maintenance of future parks will be covered, as well as future growth for the recreation program. This body of work will also evaluate the current funding strategy for these programs, as well as other options that were listed in the Parks and Recreation System Plan. And the third bucket relates to a cost-effective service delivery model. We will update previous studies completed related to service delivery, including delivery by other providers. We will also assess and evaluate the best city-managed internal structure and oversight for Parks and Recreation. All 3 of these buckets of work will be challenging, and we will need help from experts outside of the organization. Our team, which includes our finance department, is currently working together towards securing the services of some outside consultants who will help us with that work. And Council, you recently approved the quarterly budget supplement that will allow us to do that work, so we'd appreciate that. There are some communication and engagement opportunities coming up. We will, as far as communication goes, we will keep the council routinely updated as we do work on these 3 work areas. And there will be some ongoing outreach with our community as we implement the system plan through park development work. And as we develop project prioritization criteria, we will be testing that criteria with the public through some engagement, as well as the updates to the council. My final comment tonight relates to the third strategy about equity and safety. Just wanted to note that while the system plan update spoke a lot about equity throughout our systems, and the work we will do with the implementation plan will get into some specifics about that. One of the other opportunities will come as we get ready to update our trail system plan, which is a separate document. We've expanded the scope of work for that project to include some strategies for trail safety. We know that's a very important topic to the council and to our community, so I just wanted to mention that. With that, I will turn things back over to City Manager Reimer. Thank you.
Thanks to all my teammates for your presentations. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you for any questions or comments you may have of all of us.
Sure. Thank you, City Manager Reimer. And I will just make one real quickly since it's timely and responsive to Brian's last slide there. And a number of leadership team members, I think both the city manager, Chief McAlpine, and Mr. Nolip have all heard my pitch around a unique safety app for enhancing safety of our citizens. And I guess I would just strongly encourage, as you're having this discussion about strategies to enhance trail safety, I know we've talked about lighting in the past, and I would encourage the team to also reconsider whether that could be something that would be useful to enhance trail safety further. And Mr. Rager, I'm sure you probably don't know anything about what I've talked about in the past. And that's, you know, in the weeds a little bit more than the mayor usually is, but I feel pretty passionately about it. And, you know, it's the kind of thing that once built would not cost a lot to maintain, but would provide a lot of, I think, safety and security to individuals. So I would just ask that that at least be reevaluated in that process.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We will definitely be including that in that entire analysis about trail safety.
Okay, Councillor Newton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Great report, team. I'm excited about all the progress we're making. My question is, well, first of all, I've signed up to join Joanne Bankson at the farmers market for Sundays this summer. So it would be great if at opportune times around the various goals, if there was information that we could share or if there are specific questions we can ask, just wanting to make sure that, you know, I'm willing to do my part of outreach if I have the tools to do so. So as we move towards farmers market season, it's a great place to engage with folks. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Other comments or questions? I was struck by how much green there was. Seemed like we had a lot of stuff on track. And even when I reflected on where we were at just from a year ago, I'm proud of what the team's accomplished, and the council laid out some bold goals, and I feel like we're making really good progress. So, Councillor Goodhouse.
I agree with all that as well, and love to see the trail safety being on there. As I mentioned before, I know that the TCAC has been pushing that for years, and glad that that's still being looked at as far as with the downtown or areas, or just residents walking on trails a lot more. It's going to be important that that's what we've heard a lot, especially the last 2 years, people not feeling safe using the trails. And as we're a community that's all about walking and exercising and getting out there and being most walkable, we really want people to be able to get out there, go places, especially if they want to go somewhere in the evening, that they feel safe. If it starts getting dusk, that they feel safe coming back, whether it's safety patrols, lights, any of those things. So I'm glad to see that on there and attention, and hopefully we can at least start doing little parts of that over the summer and have more of a plan next year when people use that more in depth.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to commend staff. Like to see all the green and the progress that's been made on all the goals. So thank you very much. Perhaps just a couple questions. One is to Halstead, if you don't have this, that's fine. But out of the 9 people who signed up for the shuttle to go to DMV, did all 9 make it, or a good portion of them? Fingers crossed.
Unfortunately, I don't know, but I can look into that and hope that someone will find out for us. Thank you.
I wondered the same thing, if I can be copied on that information. I was curious. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I want to know.
Okay, I will look into that for you.
Great. And then perhaps just with for City Manager Reimer, I know we've had a lot of discussion on goals in the past few weeks, and a lot of questions have come up. So I'm assuming they'll still be answered for those that haven't been as part of these goals moving forward, without us having to reiterate some of those.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Shaw.
Youth Councillor Nog, did you want to say anything in this presentation?
I did really quickly. Thank you guys for all of the work you've done. It's really impressive. And if there is any way that you need more outreach, I can reach out to more people and send out surveys. I work with the student union, and I can utilize some of the resources to spread more surveys around the school. So if that would be helpful at all, I'd love to help out.
Thank you, Youth Councillor Nog. I have a feeling your future career may involve some significant engagement with whatever community or groups you're working with, because it comes natural to you. Council President Liu.
Yeah, I want to thank, the teammates for the presentation, and It's been a really busy last year and a half since we made these goals, and it's incredible to think about all the progress that has gone on and just the future forward thinking about, like the resiliency plan and all of these sorts of things just really shaping the future of Tigard. And I know that we ask a lot of our city and our team, and I'm just appreciative of all the progress that's being made on these goals. So thank you for the update.
All right, anything further, or City Manager Reimer, any follow-up to anything you heard?
Nothing new, just appreciate the continued input and support, and we look forward to our next quarterly report as well as steps in between that. Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to item number 8 on the agenda, which is a fireworks discussion. I like how it's just on the agenda, fireworks discussion. City Attorney Rahala, I think you're going to kind of introduce this. I'm just really glad we're having this conversation before it's a crisis and it's 110 degrees out. So I appreciate the foresight here. I know I had something to do with it, but others did too. So City Attorney Rahala.
Thank you, Council. Well, that was basically my setup. This is a fireworks discussion. Tonight, the request of Council is what direction do you want to do going forward with fireworks in the city of Tigard? As was said last year, it was a very last minute decision to ban fireworks as a result of the weather and other factors last year. The request was made at the time to give a little more foresight and a little less last minute this year. So that is the purpose of tonight's discussion. So the AIS presented a couple different options for you to consider tonight, and we are looking for your guidance as to what direction, if any, are of interest to you. So the first option that was laid out is future declaration of a local state of emergency. So I would say there's a 1A and 1B option with that. So 1A is, as stated in the AIS, is literally just waiting and seeing what happens as we did last year. It could be a last minute decision should the conditions warrant. TVF&R met tonight. So hot off the press, I have some information from them as to their position. As the AIS states, they are relying on cities to propose policies and enforcement regarding fireworks that is not within the jurisdictions of TVF&R as a rural fire protection agency. So TVF&R, their document, their position statement, says that they do strongly recommend emergency bans during extreme fire conditions. And their proposal is base it on extreme fire conditions. So essentially that the fireworks ban would kick in if there was a red flag warning by the National Weather Service Portland office. So as TVF&R says, extreme fire conditions consist of 3 factors: strong winds, low relative humidity, and dry ground fuels. So their proposal would be if there was a red flag warning, our ordinance would essentially say fireworks are banned in the event of a red flag warning. So that would be option 1B. They state that red flag warnings are based on defined objective criteria. They're also widely publicized by National Weather Service through local media, weather apps, and social media, which would be a little bit more public outreach than we were able to accomplish last year with the emergency last minute ban. So that's the position of TVF&R. So the second option would be to adopt a broader ordinance. As stated, this is what Bend and the city of Portland have both done. This proposal would ban all fireworks, not just the use, but also the sale and possession of fireworks. So that would be something that council could implement now. That would be in effect year round. And then option 3 would be status quo, that we continue with no regulations other than the state regulations, which are already in effect and which are already enforced by police department as they are able, though Commander McDonald is here tonight in the event council has any questions about the police department's responsibilities. So we're here to answer any questions and hear your discussion as to thoughts that you would like to see going forward.
Thank you, City Attorney Rahala. And I do, Council President Lube, do you have a question for her or, okay. No, I just want to set this up a little bit further for the conversation, if that's okay. But Council President Lube, you want to go ahead?
I just have a question for Commander McDonald, but that can wait.
Okay. I just want to acknowledge that it's not the most communication ever, but we got a lot of communication last summer on this topic. And many of the pieces of feedback and conversations that I had with community members who I'd never talked with, many of them were about fire risk, but many of them weren't. Many of them were about the terrorizing of children, small children, young children, pets, and other things that are very disruptive to people's lives. And I guess I want to make sure that that's reintroduced as a concept so people aren't forgetting about that component of this. I would say probably close to 40% of all the feedback we got was kind of in that general category. So 60% of it was around, safety. You're going to burn my house down. People use bad judgment or don't exercise good judgment during these times, et cetera. But there was a significant amount of it that was about, medicating pets and just taking days to recover, both on the pet and the young human side of things, or even adults that have trauma history that are impacted as well. So I don't want to lose sight of that. I also want to recognize that this is certainly a deeply rooted tradition in the US. That doesn't mean it needs to continue exactly as is. I'm kind of interested to see how the Portland and Bend just sort of all-out bans go. Did they allow City Attorney Rahala? Are they allowing professional fireworks presentations, or the way this is written, it says they banned everything. So are they not even allowed to do their own professional fireworks?
They do have professional fireworks that are still allowed, yes. Okay.
So I was thinking about, and this is what I wanted to kind of get out on the table, is some common sense types of things. I think TVF&R's recommendation is better than the one I was thinking about, which was more just temperature related. I was thinking, maybe I wanted whatever we did to kind of be responsive to conditions and not just be, if we've got a 70-degree July 4th, I'm not sure there's a serious public health or fire life safety reason to, have some all-out ban, but maybe I could be convinced of that potentially. And then the other thing I want to talk about is just whether there might be, and I don't see anyone talking about this, whether we might say, 10 o'clock or 10:30 p.m., you're done, and that would be a little bit of a balance for the people that are terrorized who continue to try to go to sleep and then get re-traumatized as they're trying to sleep, et cetera. So just some things to think about. Council President Lube, why don't you go with your question for Commander McDonald?
Thank you. And I also want to address that this doesn't just happen on July 4th. We heard multiple fireworks going off on Easter just a few weeks ago. So this isn't, something that's just only isolated to one specific day where pets, adults, children are affected. And so, Commander McDonald, I had a question. I was trying to remember Chief McAlpine's briefing after last year's 4th of July, and whether or not, I know our ban was something that was super quick and those sorts of things, but do you feel as though it made any impact on the amount of calls or the responsive service or the officer load that day?
It probably did make a difference on the use of fireworks. I don't know that it made a difference on our call load or call volume. I think that the heightened awareness of fire hazard last year really, that was so acute that I think the community was very aware of that. And so I think that precipitated a lot of those calls that may not have gotten calls in the past. So we didn't see a decrease in the call volume for the officers. And I, you know, in talking with officers last year about it, it did seem like there were fewer fireworks, but we didn't necessarily see a reduction in calls, and likely because of that high fire danger last year, people were so aware of it and so conscious of that.
Thank you.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. And a question for City Attorney Rahala. Was the TV FNR recommendation, the 1B you mentioned, was that both for residents of Tigard as well as the city with professional fireworks, or was that just related to citizens? Do you know?
So that was, yes, I do. That was just for community members. One of the statements that TVFNR made to help reduce fire danger and prevent fires was to consider celebrating without fireworks or attending professional displays instead of using them yourself. So that was, it is unique to community members and their own personal use of fireworks.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Youth Councillor Nog.
I had a really quick question. I think in a recent town hall, Dacia Graber was actually talking about water levels and how, because of the abnormal water, like rainfall pattern, Oregon's going to be facing a more extensive drought this summer. And I think it might be beneficial if we cut back on how much the public can use fireworks in the first place, because I mean, fireworks have had a pretty drastic impact on our community members, but it's also had a pretty bad impact on our environment. And I think it might also go along with our council goals of being environmentally friendly.
Thank you, Youth Councillor Nog. Councillor Shaw.
Great, I appreciate Youth Councillor Nog bringing that up. And I think she actually corrected her statement and said, in the Portland metro region, we are at par, if not beyond, our water levels for the year. So we're no longer in this region in drought threat, but it'd be good to fact find that. Thank you.
Councillor Goodhouse.
Are we just asking questions right now, or are we also debating, I guess?
I'd say we're somewhere in between that.
Okay. And Councillor Shaw, yeah, thank you for that note. I think Councillor Newton and I, we were in the Lake Oswego Tigard Water Partnership meeting, and they mentioned in that we were above, at least in our region, above the level we needed with the snowpack and the water. So looks like as right now, our area will be above what we need for water this time around. So there might be an update since the last time Representative Graybar mentioned that. And if I'll just jump in with my thought on this is that in all my years of living in Tigard, I don't know the last time we've really been that hot and that dry. As I mentioned when we had the discussion as council, the emergency council meeting on fireworks, I was more recommending that we look at more higher penalties or fines for those illegal fireworks that really do make a lot more of the noise. Really, I think what really affects our residents are the ones that people bring in from other states or other areas that really go up in the air. The more loud explosions, the more fireworks, the ones that people can get locally don't tend to usually make as much noise or disturb people as much or become as much of a fire risk. So I think maybe if something as council we looked at, if there's a way to increase the fines or the penalties on those illegal fireworks, I think that would be huge. The other part would be just do more education, whether or not it is or isn't a dry year. That we should just do more education to our residents of how to properly use fireworks, how to dispose of them, how to, what to do with them. That's the biggest problem I see too, is whether or not it's that day or another time someone uses them, how to dispose of those. I'd like to say just right now, leave it at do nothing, but also have it set up where if it looks like in advance, we come June or something like that, or even around June time, we see the weather changing in a couple of weeks, then we look at having it on one of our council meetings to take a discussion and look if it looks like the weather's going that way, trending, that we should have a discussion for emergency ban. But I'd like to stick with do nothing and do more outreach, more public service announcements, and look at doing higher fines and for those illegal ones that really do cause that disturbance.
So Councilor Goodhouse, if that's your position, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how that would be different than like using the National Weather Service red flag warnings, which our professional fire leaders have suggested that we use to enact something. That's already going to be responsive and frankly more informative than us as a council meeting and making that decision. I agree with you that we may not need, and the right answer for Tigard may not be an all-out ban, but why have an emergency council meeting when we can say now that if we get to the red flag warning, which is what TBF and our leaders are recommending, that we not just act at that point?
I guess maybe I misunderstood that. I don't know if there's a difference where it automatically just triggers, or if we still council each year will have to make that decision.
That's the discussion we're having now. I think one of the proposals on the table would be to adopt that recommendation from TVFNR and say if there is a red flag warning issued by the National Weather Service, that our ban goes into effect, and then we could talk about what that is. But I don't see any reason to have emergency council meetings debating things that we know less about than the National Weather Service and TVFNR leaders. Councilor Newton. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Goodhouse.
So then, yeah, that means that we would, I guess I would just like to, rather than it automatically go in effect, it would just at least be approved by council. I guess what I'm saying is that we follow the National Weather Association, but at least it gets affirmed by council. We don't go into a emergency session or we have to discuss it. It's just at least affirmed that we go ahead and put that temporary ban in.
Yeah, I mean, I view it as a standing order. The council's making the decision now, but we can have others give input on that. Councilor Newton, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like the idea of proactively deciding what we're going to do in an emergency, and I think the red, what do we call it, red flag warning, that sends a message to the community. The thing I like about that is that we can start educating the community now about what the 4th of July will look like if it's hot, what they can expect if we've got an issue. And so I like the idea of doing it proactively, and we can do some messaging. I'm always, having worked at the city, I'm always a little concerned about fireworks and the enforcement on the part of the police department because, it can be an issue. But I feel like if we have some proactive communication and folks understand what's going to happen, then it would just go into effect. We need to look at that ordinance critically, because how long in advance is that going to go into, so I guess people need to know the timing of that. So anyway, some things to consider there. So I guess I would support that. And I'm again, in terms of enforcement, I don't know if Commander McDonald has any light to shed on something like that, and if he thinks that would be problematic to enforce. So.
Councilor Newton, to be perfectly transparent, I don't think it'll be any more difficult to enforce than what we currently are faced with. I mean, that particular day, 4th of July specifically, is our highest call volume day of the year. And most of those calls come in that short, a short like 4-hour time period. So it's very, a really intensive time frame. So the days leading up to and the days after, it is easier. And so it would still apply with what council is discussing, that type of restriction would still apply. On the day of, it is complicated. It always has been, and I don't anticipate that it will get a whole lot easier. But yes, it would be in the days before and after would provide an additional tool for enforcement. Yes.
Well, and Commander McDonald, wouldn't it also help if, I know occasionally you get the callback, like the repeat callback, where people are just not doing what you asked them to do an hour ago or an hour and a half ago. I feel like this would give some opportunity there for and those are infrequent, but when they happen, they can be pretty significant. And I guess I'm feeling like this, even on the 4th of July, this could be a tool for that day too in that circumstance. I mean, I realize you're not going to be probably doing much with it the first time or maybe the second time, but you know, even third calls happen sometimes, right?
Sure. Yeah. And that, you know, the standpoint that we've taken with fireworks, not too dissimilar to other types of enforcement, is we try and do that education piece. And the education piece comes in a variety of different ways, whether it's an officer educating them in person or through the social media campaigns and public service announcements and things like that. That's all part of the education campaign. But Mayor Snyder, you're absolutely right. Those repeat, I guess we'll call them repeat offenders. Yes, it could be. It could come as an additional tool for the officers out there working on those.
I also want to add that I'm open to Councillor Goodhouse's suggestion that we take a much harder line stance on the penalties for illegal fireworks. I don't think there's any place for those in Tigard, and I would like to snuff that out in a way that gives some real enforcement tools and tells people we're serious about this. Don't do this here. And on the days that aren't the 4th of July, leading up and after, or throughout the rest of the year, apparently on Easter this year, you know, people are using illegal fireworks that are not allowed to be purchased and used in Oregon, then that, you know, that becomes something that is probably from a resource perspective enforceable. So I'm open to that. I'd be curious to hear what the rest of the council feels about that in relation to, I mean, I kind of feel like we might be headed towards a red flag warning type ban, plus maybe everything that goes in the air that's illegal in Oregon type ban. I'd ask the council again to consider maybe a time limit on July 4th too, but or on all days, like can't be done after 10 or 10:30 p.m. and can't be done before 8 or 9 a.m. Youth Councillor Nog and then Council President Lube.
I think it's imperative to have strict illegal firework bans. However, especially because of like the drought-like conditions and the projected heat warnings over the summer, it's going to be really similar weather conditions since to last year. And if we get the word out beforehand, I think it gives the city to prepare other activities instead of fireworks. So if we had like a barbecue or we all did something at Cook Park, it would give people time to prepare other activities instead of focusing on just fireworks. And even around the conversation about illegal fireworks, it's important to know that some of the biggest fireworks in Oregon actually started with really small types of fireworks like that were completely legal. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to talk about. And if we get the word out beforehand, it would let the public know in advance.
Yeah, and adjust their plans. Maybe not spend the money on things, maybe spend the money on alternatives. Maybe we need an education campaign about what all those alternatives are. I mean, I think there's other things that could be fun. Council President Lube.
Yeah, I appreciate all of this discussion. I'm certainly on board with Councillor Goodhouse's recommendation of putting stricter fines in place and really giving, you know, our police department teeth to have significant penalties. I do disagree that only illegal fireworks are disruptive. As somebody who lives in a neighborhood where people like to celebrate, you know, I'm also torn because I love sparklers. I mean, I sit there, who hasn't had a sparkler, right? And so, but it feels like that's not intrusive to someone else's 4th of July experience the way that loud fireworks are. And I live in a house where, you know, my animals have a hard time. I now have a young daughter and she has a hard time. And 4th of July, honestly, and other holidays where people are, you know, using fireworks, they're just very stressful experiences that impact the whole household and the whole family. And so I wish there was a way that people could enjoy fireworks or some sort of, alternative event where it's not so disruptive on other people's lives and a fire danger. And I'm trying to figure out what that is, and I don't necessarily have a solution, but just coming from the perspective of somebody who lives it makes for a very unpleasant, couple of days, just sitting bracing at all times of what's going to happen.
So I got cut off and got to reboot my Teams there for a moment. So did we move towards did I miss any movement towards consensus or direction for staff there? Can someone, Council President Lube, did you, are we getting to that point? Did I miss anything related to that?
No, I mean, I will say that I think going with the TVF&R recommendation of a red flag warning, I think is the bare minimum, and I'm certainly open to discussion for more. But I don't know what that looks like if there's a gray area between, a red flag warning and a total ban. Because like I said, I can appreciate, experiencing sparklers or something like that that's not actively intrusive to other people's enjoyment of the holiday.
Do you have any feelings about time of day?
Honestly, I don't know if that's going to matter, and I think about enforcement. They're, our officers are already behind him. Maybe that's an educational piece where. Yeah, but at the same time, the kids and stuff, they're well asleep by 10 o'clock. So at that point, does it matter? I don't know.
Well, if they get woken up, it definitely does. Councilor Goodhouse first.
Are we just making the recommendation? Are we voting on tonight, or are we just pointing staff in direction and then come back?
I think we're giving direction such that something could be brought back that looks like what we want it to look like. At least that's what I think we're doing. City Attorney Rahalas is shaking her head yes.
All right. Then on that case, I'm in favor of the 1B, where education, looking at maybe something with steeper fines. That way we can educate the public, but no, I'm not looking at being any more restrictive than that.
I think the 1B recommendation included the red flag warning proactively, correct?
Yeah.
You're okay with that too?
Yeah, I mean, I just like that. I guess I would just like a little more clarification on just all the parameters of what that would be. It says some of it in there, but I know basically there's a red flag warning issued, but then and I can always talk to staff offline to get a little more details of how that works as far as leading up to it and what the temperatures and basically what everything's like during that time. I mean, if we're that bad, I presume it's gonna be like last year where the only time it would really hit red flag. I just don't want to see it hitting something where it's red flag, but then for some reason rain comes in and we're okay and it's not quite, I don't know. I mean, in Oregon, it can be, Monday can be bad and Wednesday's 4th of July and then it's fine on Wednesday. So I'm just wondering how that.
Well, I think it's based on the weather forecast, but I think between the city attorney and maybe somebody from TVF&R, can you get Councilor Goodhouse's questions answered?
Certainly. And again, the information TVF&R provided is that red flag warnings are based not just on temperature, mainly not on temperature, dry ground fuels, relatively low humidity, and strong winds. So it's the combination of those. Temperature isn't actually on the list.
Okay.
Though those things frequently happen when the temperature is higher. I mean, there's an association there.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the fail safe. I mean, not every situation. I'm just thinking if we have something that's automatic that goes in place, I'm just, most likely it's gonna be bad. But I'd also hate to see a situation where it's people's looking around saying, well, that was in place, but it's not anymore, and things are fine, and we could have done fireworks. So that's my only kind of hesitation. But I'm game rather than every year council having to meet and do that for the 1B, but not looking at any other additional restrictions.
What about your proposal for our greater fines on illegal fireworks?
Yes.
Okay, so 1B plus. Councilor
Newton. 1B plus fines, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in because I hadn't earlier that I would be supportive of fines as well, increased fines. And I think that's something we should if we're going to do this, we need to do it quickly so we can start an education program so folks know that fines are going to go up if we decide to do that, and that we're looking at the red flag warning as a way to address unsafe conditions.
City Attorney Rahala, it seems to me like we're getting to consensus. Oh, Councillor Shaw, go ahead.
I was just going to say I also support TVF and R1B, but
what about the plus? Are you okay with instituting much more dramatic fines for the use of illegal fireworks?
I would say if we can put an information educational plan well in advance, perhaps, but if not, perhaps a warning, and then for 2023, that the fines would increase.
Okay. City Attorney Rahala, do you feel like you've got enough direction and clear consensus?
I think so. I do have 2 clarifications. One clarification is the enhanced fines, that is only during the red flag ban period, or is that at all times?
Year round, all the time. They don't belong here.
Okay. Second clarification is some jurisdictions, like Lake Oswego is one of them, during their red flag period, which is different in Lake Oswego, but during their period of extreme fire danger, they also prohibit the sale of fireworks. Prohibiting the sale is also something that Bend and Portland have done. Is there any interest in going that route, or are we just focused on the use of fireworks?
I mean, this is tough because I think we got into this discussion last year. All the groups that are fundraising and everything else, I guess they could make different choices. If they looked at the weather forecast and thought it was not favorable, then they wouldn't load up and buy a bunch of product that they then couldn't sell. So I think maybe that's worth discussing, but I know it's a different level of intrusiveness. But I'd hate to be in a situation where we, everybody can go out and buy them and everybody can sell them, but then we tell people they can't use them. Councillor Goodhouse?
Agree with that. I think we had the discussion last time, and usually with most situations like that, they're buying those months in advance to really get the discount or putting that order in. And if they're ordering that in advance, people can use them in their time and they want to support those events. So if we take that away from them, they can't predict what was happening or not. And those are a big fundraising source for Tigard High School Band, Boy Scouts, any of our different nonprofits through the area. So I think people would still be able to buy them, and then they could either use them for the next year or use them at another time, or wait until the weather's better. But I would be strongly against banning the sale of fireworks.
Okay, Councillor Newton.
And I guess, Councillor Goodhouse, I appreciate your perspective, but I think that would be confusing to people in the community. You're going to let me buy them, but I can't use them. I'm confused. What's the deal? So I think it would be unfortunate, but I think under a red flag warning, that's a little bit what kind of I heard people were confused about last year. So I just would be concerned that that people would be confused and feel sort of like, well, wait a minute, I went and spent all this money on fireworks and now you're telling me I can't use them. So that would concern.
And we're going to be putting them on notice now or in 2023. I mean, maybe this is something that goes for 2023, but I think that, once we make this statement, everybody can prepare and react. It's 3 or 4 months beforehand, or 15 months if you consider 2023. But I think that the red flag warning is a use and a sale both has impact on both of those. Councillor Goodhouse?
I think that maybe for a kind of a happy medium is that if we're looking at doing this 2023, that the city could come up with some kind of flyer or something for those vendors that they could put at their booths or fireworks stands that state, we're in a red flag warning situation right now. Fireworks are banned. You can purchase, but they're banned during this period. So people, when they walk up before they purchase them at the register, know that they can't use them, and that would help at each fireworks stand. Maybe something that looks official that says you can purchase, but you cannot use during this time period, and this is why, and point to the city ordinance.
All right. Anyone else supportive of that approach? Council President Loop?
No, I was just gonna say that I think it's confusing and it's unfortunate. So I am in agreement with Mayor Snyder and Councilor Newton on the ban of sale and use.
Councilor Shaw, you want to add anything, or Youth Councilor Nog, anything further, or are you comfortable with where it sounds like the majority of folks are headed?
I would probably go ahead with the notion that Council President Lube just said. It would be a little confusing if you sold fireworks but then told people that they weren't allowed to use them. And I think it would also like kind of tell people to use the fireworks in different places, which doesn't really help any of the environmental concerns that we're facing with droughts and any hazards.
All right, City Attorney Rahala, does that now answer your odds and ends?
It does, thank you. And just to circle back to the noise discussion from earlier, understanding that's not part of the ordinance, but just to let you know that under our current noise ordinance, illegal fireworks, noise caused by illegal fireworks is already prohibited. There is an exception for sounds made by legal fireworks on the 3rd of July, 4th of July, and the Friday and Saturday during the weekend closest to the 4th of July, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. So that is already included in our code. So.
Wow, that's pretty specific.
We will be back to you with an ordinance at a future meeting.
And City Attorney Rahala, timing on that, can that be, you know, in the month of May so that people have time to prepare and the education campaign can start?
Yes, I think that's reasonable. Yes.
Okay. And then Commander McDonald and whatever staff, City Manager Reimer, I think the communications team probably needs to be starting to prepare now as to how the public education campaign is going to start, so that when council takes action, that can immediately happen, not 4 weeks later. Because if we're doing this at the end of May and then it takes 3 or 4 weeks to get it out in June, that's going to be too late. I mean, I would say the latest that this education and change blitz should happen should be starting in the beginning of June at the latest, in my mind. Memorial Day would be a good target.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we can get the communications team on that immediately, and then as soon as council acts on it, we can have things prepared and ready to go out at that time.
Okay. Everybody comfortable with that approach? All right. I think we're done with fireworks for tonight. No non-agenda item. City Manager Reimer, do you have an administrative report?
Absolutely. Thanks to Shelby and Commander McDonald for their report and your conversation about fireworks. To start, we want to welcome back one of our police officers, Josh Dower. He just returned from a one-year deployment for the Coast Guard. So not only has he dedicated his service to our community, but also to our country. So just a great thing for one of our teammates, and just welcome back to our Officer Dower and thank him very much for his efforts. As you know, we had a busy past weekend. We had our volunteer event that many of you attended. And then the next day, in celebration of Earth Week, we had 40 members of our community helping with volunteer activities in our parks, removing ivy. We also had some of our groups with us, such as the Climate Champions and the Tualatin River Keepers. So thanks to our community for coming together once again, and continues to come together to support everything that we have here. A couple dates for the council to save, and we will also make sure we send something out so we get this on your calendar ahead of time. But our second Pride Parade is going to be on June 12th. That's a Sunday. And then the following Saturday, we're working with TTST on both of these events, looking at a Juneteenth celebration on Saturday, June 18th. So once again, we'll send this out to your calendar, so at least you have it, but just hold those dates, please. A couple other things, as the council's aware, maybe the community is not, the Metro Council will be starting their conversation about our urban growth boundary expansion proposal that we submitted. And so the COO's recommendation will be to look at a land exchange process. That's important for people to understand because it would not be expanding the overall size of the urban growth boundary, but potentially exchanging land in other parts for the 500 acres that Tigard is looking at bringing in. This process is expected to last throughout 2022. And so Thursday, Metro Council will have a work session on that. I'll report back to all of you. And then there'll be a formal process that's going to be created if the Metro Council wants to pursue this avenue after Thursday's meeting. So more to come on that. At our library, a few things happening. Our AARP, not our ARPA, but our AARP taxes have been completed, and 520 local residents took advantage of that service. So another great service at our library, helping people complete their taxes. And we also have an event coming up on May 7th for Free Comic Book Day. And so we're on the stop where you can stop in and get a cool comic book, as well as other things at our library. We also do have a follow-up from last week. Councilor Newton, you asked a question about our library services, and thanks to Halstead and our team, we have a follow-up for you. This is about the curbside holds and pickups. And so just some stats for all of you. So last month we had curbside hold pickups of 118. That's 2% of the volume from a year ago, 2%. Which was at that point almost 5,500. When the doors reopened to the public in April of this year, or of 2021, the monthly total dropped from 4,300 to 1,800. And now that we have such a, I'd say, refined system, even if the numbers are low, we think we can continue this. The team has really put an efficient way of handling this, and there are patrons who really appreciate that. And so we will continue it. The numbers are much lower than they were in the past, and expectedly so. But kudos to the team and Halstead and her leadership for finding a way to continue this. This kind of goes back to the goal on our COVID efforts, if you recall, just looking at ways of continuing to serve our community and learning from this. And so I think this is a real example of something that will continue into the future. So with that, that concludes my report, and thanks for another great meeting.
Thank you, City Manager Reimer. And it just strikes me what you were just describing with the library is also, meeting people where they are. They may not be able to come in for a whole variety of reasons, but they may be able to get there in their car, or on a bike. All right. Thank you very much. And I think we'll move to adjournment. I don't know of any other business. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second
that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, roll call vote, please. City Recorder Craig, not hearing you. It looked like you were starting to speak, but I'm not. Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay. Councilor Newton.
Yes.
All right. Council President Lube.
Yes.
Councilor Shaw.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Councilor Goodhouse.
Yes.
All right. We are adjourned. Good night, Tigard.
Night.
Night.